This video is going to cover what is the 3 best loadouts to use inside Warzone after the Season 5 update. Now the reason I've narrowed it down to 3 is because there's not a lot of guns to choose from that are really good now. Even though there's been some buffs and nerfs, it doesn't really change too much with the game. And also, we want to keep this video as short as possible. Starting off at number 1 and the main meta loadout to use is the STG-44 and the TAQ-V. Both of these are the brand new guns, but both of these guns are absolutely broken. The STG is super low recoil and it also has a pretty decent TTK from what we can feel in game. So the build for this one is the build that we used in our previous videos. So if you do want to see me use it in the firing range and all that kind of stuff, then you can check out that video. But this is the build for it. So we're using the Casus Brake, the heavy barrel, which is the one that helps with bullet velocity, not the other one that helps with recoil, the glassless optic, and the combo stock, which is the best stock, and the 50 round mag. So this is the best build for the STG-44. Now this gun absolutely destroys. I've been watching a lot of streamers actually use this gun now, and it's the best long range rifle in the game by far. Then we are pairing it with the TAQ-V, which has insanely good close range TTKs. For some reason, it pretty much beats every other SMG, so it's got to be a meta gun. Now, the only thing that does let this down is movement, and that is why we've geared all the attachments towards movement, because the recoil in this gun is pretty low anyway, so we don't need to try and control that. The iron sights are also horrible in this gun as well, by the way. So, DR hand stop, we are using the light barrel again for movement speeds. Kimura laser light, you can swap this out for a different attachment if you prefer. The optic, that is going to be preference, and we are using the light stock. Now you can also use no stock, but I feel like it does just mess up your recoil a little bit too much. Moving on into the second loadout now, and this is still a very solid choice. That's the Kar 98K with the Saperi. Now the Saperi did get nerfed, but only in terms of movement speeds, and only by a little bit as well. So if you do make a movement based build like this one here, then you should still do pretty well with the Saperi regardless. Now, the Saperi, if you do want to make it more like a sniper support build, then obviously you could swap the barrel for something else. Every other attachment is movement based anyway. But just to make sure we are getting max movement out of this weapon, then this is what we're using here. So you can also remove the laser and maybe put on a muzzle instead. That helps with recoil and obviously allow you to land better shots. But like I said, I keep the movement in this gun. So we are using the short barrel here for the movement speeds. We are using the hand stop under barrel. We're using the laser lights laser, obviously. We're using the 40 round mags and the rescue stock, which is the best. When it comes to the Kar 98K, obviously it's the best sniper in the game right now, and for good reason, but also the build does adjust slightly depending on who's using it, to be honest. But this is the build that I've found works perfect for me. You want to use the sonic suppressor to get bullet velocity. We're also using the long barrel for, again, bullet velocity. We're using the Collar 3.4 optic. This is the cleanest optic, the one that basically is the Kar 98 optic. Then we are using the sling. When it comes to the slings, we're using the RECON sling. And then we are using high grain rounds. So you can choose high grain rounds, or you can remove that and put on a laser for faster aim down sight. It just depends on how aggressive you are with this gun, but personally this is my favorite build. The third loadout is a super easy to use loadout, and this is the SVA with the Striker. Now the Striker is a solid gun still. People are still using this and it's working pretty well. Now I don't know how it's going to fare up against the new static SMG, because that has insanely good TTKs, by the way. But this is still a solid choice because it's super low recoil, but also it matches the movement speed of the Saperi, which is obviously really good. So, or the old Saperi for that matter. But this is what the build is. Stubby barrel, Kimura laser light, hand stop under barrel, 48 round mags, and the TAQ grip, which is going to help with sprint to fire speeds. This is a low recoil option, and you will be able to land your shots at even medium range with this. So obviously that is the benefit of using this gun. When it comes to the SVA, the build doesn't really change too much. I feel like a lot of people are using this build right now. The optic can sure change to your preference, but the rest of everything else remains the same, because we're not actually using this gun in full auto. We're actually using it in a burst fire, and you want to make sure you can obviously tap as fast as possible, and you pretty much get zero recoil. So we're using the precision barrel, the sonic suppressor for bullet velocity once again, high grain rounds again for more bullet velocity, and 60 round mags. Now you could swap out the high grain for maybe the Brune heavy support grip if you wanted to for extra recoil control, but you don't really need it again when you're firing in that burst mode. Last but not least, I thought I'll chuck in a couple of honorable mentions here, and that is the MTZ-556 and the WSP-9. Both of these guns are pretty solid. I still want to see how they compare against the new guns, because to be honest, nothing's going to beat the STG and the static, to be fair, besides maybe the Superi in certain circumstances and the car. I think that's the second best loadout that's really close, but both of these guns are pretty solid if you want to try something slightly different. The MTZ-556 has been pretty solid, but it did get a slight buff to its damage ranges, so it's still going to be a really good choice. You want to use the Cassis brake, the Drifter Heavy, or you could use the Clinch Pro. Both are really good choices. It depends on if you want a little bit more bullet velocity or not. Whatever optic you prefer, the Brune Archangel MK2 is going to help the best when it comes to recoil, and then the 50 drum. Then the WSP-9, I can have a love-hate relationship with this gun for some reason. Sometimes I do really well with it, sometimes I don't do well at all with it. I just feel like it's inconsistent for me personally, and then sometimes I just feel like I'm getting gunned by it as well. So it's just one of those weird guns that I just don't understand where I actually, if I like it or not. But this is the build anyway. So you do want to use the compensated flash hider, the DR hand stop, the 50 round mags, whatever optic you like, or you can use the irons, but the irons are not great. And the factory stock is what I like to use personally on this. And this is my favorite build for the WSP-9 when I do tend to use it. It's not a gun I like to use very often, to be perfectly honest with you. But that is the WSP-9. So that is the top 3 best loadouts with an honorable mention. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.